There is more going on in this country than I will ever be able to conclusively report from this news desk. Come with me and find out. You are speaking to Amina Kaunda. I am calling from Spring TV. You describe yourself as an openly gay woman. What was that like for you in a country that describes homosexuality as a quote-unquote crime? For news that goes beyond the headlines, where politics and politicians are a feature, not the headline. Uncharted, every Sunday, only on Spring TV.
Good evening and welcome to this week's edition of Crossfire. My name is Gloria Kalambo, and of course, in case you're watching the program for the very first time, need I remind you or let you know that Crossfire comes your way every single Monday of the week at 20 hours. So we get to discuss different topics, of course, current affairs, politics, governance, name it, and our aim is to actually inform you, our viewers. So on this week's edition of the program, we sit down with local government and Rural Development Minister, Honorable Garry Nkombo. Honorable, good evening and welcome to Crossfire.
Good evening, colleague, and I'm happy to be here. Good evening, viewers.
I'm sure it's your first time featuring on our program on Spring TV after your appointment. So I'd like to, first of all, congratulate you for your ministerial, or on your ministerial appointment, that is.
Thank you very much. With your permission, maybe I could remove my mask so that I'm a little bit more audible. Well,
I think we're social distancing well enough.
All right.
Let's get right into it. So, I mean, you just, of course, recently were appointed after your party's victory in the August 12th election. You were appointed Minister of Local Government and Rural Development. How is the settling-in process going so far?
Well, it's first of all, it's a big ministry, and secondly, there has been realignment, which has even made it bigger. If you do recall, before there was a separate Ministry of Traditional Affairs, and so that has been incorporated under the ministry that I'm privileged to run. It's got a lot of directorates and hence a lot of responsibilities. Other than that of the core business of local government, we have rural development. And I know you know that Zambia is probably about 86 to 90% rural in terms of the dwellers, people who live in this country. A great, part of this land is villages, and cities are only, in concentrated areas. And so the fact of the amalgamation of the traditional affairs, rural development, central local government itself does pose a challenge. And so we are settling down very steadily and very gradually. And we are getting into the groove in order for us to start the traction. But so far, so good. I would not be saying I'm having a headache from the office. Yeah.
All right. I love that you explained quite well what the incorporation of rural development actually is. That was going to be my next question. But anyway, let's talk about the councils. We saw that in the previous administration, there was a struggle when it comes to the management of these councils. And of course, we did see workers go months without pay, and most of these was being attributed to the lack of funds, which was mainly to do with political affiliations by the previous administration. What assurance are you giving the council workers under your administration?
Okay, I think this has got a historical perspective. We have to understand and agree that the issue of the dislocation of councils in terms of paying workers, in terms of providing services, has a historic perspective. And I'll begin by saying, back in the MMD days, and little maybe in the UNIP days. But it was more pronounced in the MMD days, where the political cadres decided to take over functions of the council. It only made it worse for the councils to operate effectively in terms of self-delivery and also in terms of paying their own workers. And so this was growing trend, and it was perfected under the last regime. I must say clearly here that this is a matter that we as UPND are fighting very, very hard to nip it completely, so that it doesn't come back around where the functions of the councils are being taken over by political cadres or, you know, praise singers, and then thereby promoting illegalities. You know very well that marketplace has always been a very big source of revenue for councils. So have been bus stops, but as it were, political cadres took over the bus stops, they took over the markets. They basically just seized the whole opportunity for the councils to function properly. And this whole matter was worsened by deliberate government-less goodwill, where we saw that the functions of the local authority, the functions of the Ministry of Local Government and Housing, as it was called before, was broad. It was very broad, and then here's a chicken that was moving, and it was having its feathers plucked in back in the year 1996. I'm sure you recall that, if you're old enough, that district councils, rural councils, city councils had houses that belonged to the council, where they were drawing a source of revenue. And because of political expedience, and somebody had to win the elections of 1996, I beg your pardon, they sold their houses for 10 kwacha, 10 bucks, and without a plan to replenish housing to keep the councils going. And that was the first part of plucking the feather from the chicken while it was moving. And the second came when the water utilities now were also dismembered from local government or councils. If you recall, before, the council was responsible for water treatment and provision of it to the public. But then there was an establishment of NWASCO, which also started superintending over provincial regional water utilities like Swasco, Lusaka Water, Molonga Water. So they took away that responsibilities from the council as well. The issue in the Act provides that the councils must do the licensing, okay, of a lot of things, including motor vehicle licensing. The establishment of RATSA also plucked some more feathers from the responsibilities of the council. And you know very well that toll gates, tolling, is also in the Act. It's supposed to be responsibilities of council, and there was an establishment of the NRFA, which is taking the money to central government, leaving the councils a little bit vulnerable in terms of how much they can collect. And so here are the few examples of the challenges that came from legacy, from the old days. And as a government, we are trying our best to realign ourselves to the law. And if realignment becomes a challenge, we must then change the law so that we are in tandem with the law and follow what it says. The local government is responsible for maintenance of feeder roads, township roads, fire, you know, play parks, like I said already, licensing. Be it whatever, licensing of trading places, liquor licensing, undertaking, you know, making sure that people are buried decently. All that is the work of the council. So it's quite a mouthful. It's a lot. The councils are responsible also for the change of land use, you know, and that is involving. It's quite involving. It's responsible for fire. It's all that is responsible for responsibility for the councils and the Ministry of Local Government. So indeed, there's so much on the plate. But I must say that we have a team that we found, and we have a team that has been reassembled in terms of management, myself, my 2 permanent secretaries, and it is our desire that we work to the satisfaction of those whose aspirations and interests we sought to serve at the time when looking for political office. And now we have it, and we cannot no longer continue to groan and moan about how bad things are, because it's time to start fixing these things.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, I mean, with you mentioned a number of responsibilities under the council. So does this mean with well managed, can we get to a point where these councils are now they're sustaining themselves, and of course they're having very little to no challenges when it comes to funding?
Yeah,
like.
it's possible, Gloria. For instance, I would not understand, even in my wildest dreams, why a council like Lusaka City, a council like Ndola City, a council like Kitwe City, a council like Livingstone, even Mazabuka, where I come from, with so much infrastructure, so much business going on, so much industry, I don't see how a council can be struggling. Okay? Now, sometime in the past, there was the introduction of as a result of this deficiency of central government providing money, at least for people to wake up, go and work, and get paid on the 30th, and not on the 40th or the 50th, where people have been going months on end without getting paid. There was a drive to try and cushion all that by introduction of the local authorities equalization fund. My own view is that around the local authority equalization fund, it should be equalizing indeed, so that upcoming councils such as Chibuyunji, as an example, such as Chikankata, as an example, should not get exactly the same amount of money that Lusaka City Council is getting, because Lusaka City Council is a fully grown baby, whereas these other ones are still very small. And from our perspective as a new Dawn government, I want to say this to you and say it without fear of any contradiction, that one of the ways in which we've decided that we're going to try and equalize and provide for that kick-in development plan was to first increase the constituency development fund from a meager 1.6 million to a whooping 25.7 million kwacha per constituency. And why is this such a good thing? I have heard arguments from our friends in PF who failed to decentralize. And when I'm talking about decentralizing, I'm talking about management decentralization as well as fiscal decentralization, where money is cascading down to the people and the people are given the opportunity to decide their own destiny. You know what I mean? We have now activated and established the constitutional requirement of the ward development funds, committees, I beg your pardon. So these committees at the lowest enclave of our social strata are going to be part and parcel of the decision making. For instance, one good thing that one can never even falter us about is the fact that we have a lot of children who are vulnerable, Gloria. Vulnerable in the sense that maybe they have they're double orphans. They've got it up here, the grey matter, but there's no one to take them to school. This Constituency Development Fund now provides, subject to the profiling and streamlining of the guidelines, it provides that a community can actually identify a child who has high potential but does not have what it takes to go into school, to sponsor this child. The community itself will identify a number of brainy children and sponsor them to school through to tertiary, and produce a doctor, produce a nurse, and these children are going to wake up and say, I was educated by my ward through the identification out of the facility that we have broadened to the tune of 25.7 million. We've also decided that we are going to make sure that we ring fence around the CDF money enough for business development. You understand? For small-scale enterprises, where group cooperatives. We have encouraged our citizens to establish cooperatives to do business. You know, chicken run, to do business in piggery, to do business in farming, to do business in trading, and to do, you know, to be enterprising. Therein lies the solutions in as far as we are concerned, and people will cry foul when they don't have anything to say. that, look, we have no capacities, councils have no capacities to manage 25
Which is,
points.
I mean, that's my question exactly. With the current structure, how possible is it that the responsibilities that the city, the committee is going to have now, or is going to be, you know, well managed? How confident and comfortable are you?
Well, what my president, His Excellency Mr. Akande Hishlema, has often said is that he's devolving money, he's taking money from, well, he calls them thieves in Lusaka, to the people. And believe me, Gloria, it is not possible for the people to steal from themselves. Under the centralized system, you know there was a total imbalance, and I think this must come very clearly to everyone, that there was a total imbalance, that some of us, for instance, who came from the opposition at the time, would never get a fair share of government allocation of funds to our constituencies. And this thing that was very often said, when you complain that I do not have a school here, they would say, if you want a school, you must vote properly.
I remember you talking about that in Parliament
Absolutely,
quite a lot.
absolutely. And now that Kavotedwe thing is going to be a thing of the past, because every constituency is getting exactly the same amount of money. All right? Exactly the same amount of money. And I'm telling you now, 25 times more is no mean achievement. It's a big stride that we were, in my constituency, for example, Mazabuka, I have 9 wards, okay? And then you get 1.6 million. How much do you, on average, share per ward? It will give you about 300,000. Now, what about 25 million? It's a lot of money. Each constituency will be sharing somewhere around 3 million kwacha. Now, 3 million kwacha, I can tell you, it can establish a fully fledged school. It can establish a fully fledged clinic. 1 year, 1 fiscal year, it can do that. And for smaller constituencies, oh my God, look, these people are going to be lifted. And it was simply by the stroke of a pen when the president said, we're going to take money to the people. Everybody must be happy. I think so, because you can't share poverty. In as far as I'm concerned, it has always been his dream that people must decide how they want to shape their destiny. And it's happening. It's actually happening.
All right. So in
just like in a movie.
In that regard, what, of course, I know that, of course, what development committees right now as we speak are sitting, and of course, across the country that is. So what type of people do you think these committees will constitute of? I mean, this is huge amounts of money. Again, I'm going to repeat
But
myself.
by the way, they will not be the ones administering the money. I want you to understand that.
Of course.
Because there's a whole process, and without preempting anything, the guidelines are coming out maybe tomorrow or the other day. Today, my staff, together with the Decentralization Secretariat, sat to look at the proposed guidelines and to fine-tune the documents, but without preempting what's coming out of there. This is going to be protected, extremely protected. There will be no room for anyone to embezzle money, because the Ward Development Fund will have their role to play. Which role will be to identify what the socio-economic needs of that particular jurisdiction is. Okay? So there will be the identification squad, those who will say, and by the way, the structure is done in such a way that we try as much as possible to depoliticize these ward committees.
That's another concern, actually.
Although we saw, sitting at the pinnacle of the ministry, I saw that ugly face of political, shenanigans coming. We want to win. There was nothing about winning. Where development comes, when you are going to build a school, there will be no PF school. There will be no UPND school. There's going to be a school for everybody, you know what I mean? And so we try to water this down completely to be able to say, look, this is for the common good of the entire society. So try to depoliticize the issue of who sits on the committee. And over and above that, even the CDF committee, the Constituency Development Fund Committee, has got its own prescription on who should sit there. It's the MP. It's somebody from the civil society who should not have political alignment. from the church who should have no political assignment, civic leaders, councillors, the MPs, and then the management of the council, also the director of planning, the director of finance, will also sit in that. So it will not be like a one track. It's going to have many people sitting there, and then the full council, I believe, although that had been taken out, I think the full council will have to now authenticate the applications of what development people want to have in their wards, scrutinize them, approve them. Then they will be sent to the minister, who is myself, for the final approval. And that should there be any reason to change the project, or any reason indeed in the beginning, right now I'm busy signing approvals for the committees, those who should sit on the committee of the CDC. If there should be any change, and we are doing it in such a flash moment, we are not delaying. If there's a change of the people who should sit on the committees, the moment it hits my desk and there's enough justification, I'll sign it off. Similarly, when the projects are profiled and they come, we're going to sign them off. It is much easier, Gloria, to monitor, to micromanage an activity, a development activity by the council in a particular jurisdiction, as against me sitting at the ministry and superintending on something that is happening in Ikelenge or in Chama, 1,500 kilometers away from where I am. In that particular trail, you'll find some leakages, some seepages, money will get lost, but this money will be sitting at the district. It will be audited. There will be internal auditors, there will be external auditors, there will be the Auditor General, because this is government money. And so we are quite confident ourselves that things that have been bothering us, our communities, in the low valleys of Zambezi, in the high escarpments of everywhere in this country, where they want to fix a small culvert or a bridge, the Constituency Development Fund will do it. You don't have to wait for the central government to repair a broken dam, a weir, to satisfy the requirements of headsmen like me, those who keep cattle. So we think that we've done a good thing, and let's do this test run into this next fiscal year and give us an assessment sheet. Next year, at the end of the fiscal year, you'll be able to say, okay, you guys have done well here, you guys have, this is the area that requires improvement, and we are amenable to advice.
I mean, the major concern in that regard, like I mentioned earlier in passing, is the political aspect of it. I mean, it's being run, or it's being headed. These committees will be headed by a political figure, which is the MP. So obviously, I mean, what assurance does a child coming from a family that is maybe belonging to a political party is, I don't know, headed by such a family? Really, there's some of these...
Brilliant question, Gloria. Very, very brilliant question. You know, when you're raising a doctor, when you're raising a teacher, when you're raising a teacher like me, when you're raising a lawyer, you do not look at the face or the color of the political affiliation for somebody. Because when this person goes into industry, when you go to UTH, the doctors there must belong to a certain political persuasion, but their training is that they're going to treat everyone, whether you're from this. So I think that it doesn't matter. For me, if they say the ward chairman for PF in Nega ward, the son is identified to be the one who has got what it takes to get a bursary, I will not look after his father's face and say that one belongs to PF, therefore a UPND child should be the one to go to school, even when they don't deserve it. The whole point is that we are going to be going into human resource development. And when this child, the son of a PF chairman, becomes a doctor, they will remember that I was educated by the society and not by a party. I was identified by a society. And you do not want to just pluck out a little child who doesn't have it there to be sponsored, and yet when they get to a certain level of education, they flunk, they fail. So that will be money wasted. As far as we are concerned, I think that we are going to get this whole act right. We are going to, before, Gloria, when I was growing up, They were centers of excellency. In secondary schools, there was schools like Hillcrest, St. Mary's, those which admitted only children who were brilliant. And it's easy to identify a brilliant child. And so you first identify that brilliance before you get to know whose father they, whose child they are. And so the issue of are you going to educate a child of a parent from the opposition does not arise. Yeah.
All right. Still on depoliticization, as has been or was the issue when you just got into government as the UPND, and of course, especially under your ministry, markets and bus stations. How are you managing that? I know we saw an upper from your own party members and wanting to also have a piece of the cake.
A bite at the cherry.
Yeah.
I think we were defined from the beginning that we abhor political cadreism in markets, in bus stops. And this was a bitter pill to put in the mouth, because when certain people within our own establishment realized that we had won, they probably thought this is our time. But I think as a party we go beyond our time. And I can tell you, had we taken the same path of what PF did, and I'm saying this again without any fear of any contradiction, this country would have been probably on fire by now. Because, oppressed people at one point rise and they say, chive, it's okay. Let's just belt it out now. That's how civil wars began in places like Rwanda, because there was discrimination that was based on, first, ethnic extraction. It then built up into political persuasion. In this country, under 100 days ago, that ugly face was there, where if you are a UPND, your chances of seeing the light of day the next day, if you're identified, were very slim. Boys and girls would lynch you to death, beat the living daylights out of you. All that thing, by the pronunciation of a serious president, and take it from me, Gloria, Mr. Hichilema is a very serious individual. He just said, if you do this, you are on your own. Of course, it raised some consternation. And I've heard people making noises about, well, this, UPND, that, they failed here. No. The social fabric has been, we are trying to make it seamless now. So it doesn't matter who you are. It doesn't matter whether you are PF, you are Mr. Kalava's party, Mr. Membe's party. You must enjoy the full rights of citizenship in this country. You must enjoy the fruits of the democracy that we fought for. You must be respected for what you believe in. In PF, there was nothing like that, my lady. There was nothing. I couldn't walk into a bus stop. You know very well. Even without UPND clothes, just this face was an endangered species. I couldn't walk at Soweto Market. If I go to Soweto Market, I'm looking for a spare part for my car, I would make sure that, one, I go in a tinted car and I don't come out. Because the moment those boys at Kamgodi, the memories should still be fresh, Gloria. You know what Kamgodi was all about. And it was being replicated everywhere. And it was state-sponsored violence. It was the PF sponsored all these things, the shenanigans that you saw. It was sponsored, clearly there must have been a funding line to keep this whole thing going, putting citizens in harm's way. And I'm not doing no politics here, I'm just saying it as it is. Today, how many kids, boys and girls, do you see wearing PF T-shirts with Edgar Lungu on the face, smiling, and everybody's just going around their own business? Plenty. Isn't that a remarkable change?
Well, remarkable it is. Remarkable it is indeed. So, I mean, we have had a few reports, as you put it earlier, of course, reports here and there, of your party members having hidden structures.
We're going to clean that up. We will clean that up. You know, a journey of 1,000 miles begins with one step. We took a giant leap. I can confirm here. There's still a little bit of stench going on about cadreism. Some, and to be fair with everyone, some UPND masquerading to be PF and vice versa, because they don't want to be known. There has been this wanton, for instance, last week, I'll tell you, Gloria, I got a call from many of you asking me, we are told that your UPND have closed shops in market of people who belong to PF. I was on the Copper Belt when those calls came. And I found the number for the market master for North Mid Market. I said, I want you to tell me who, by name, particularly came to lock shops and for what reason. And the market master, helpless, says, no, you see, sir, they said that it was from high authority. I said, the only high authority that is there under this ministry is the president and myself. Now, go to this man. His name is Mr. Monjeza Piri. He operates in market. Go and hire a grinder and cut those locks that those people put and close shops because they believed that these were PF supporters. And at that point, I didn't care who it was. I simply said, whoever put that must come and face me, and I'm ready to leave my job if anyone above me condones the business of killing opportunities of other people simply because they belong to a different political party. And I'm very strong about that. I said, go. There were 5 or 6 shops that were closed for 2 days. Now, so if that went on for another 2, 3, 4 weeks, Gloria, it means the children at home are going to be starving, you know?
Exactly.
So we went and Mr. Monjeza went and cut the locks. And I apologized to the shop owners. I said, tell me who comes to do that, because they must face the wrath of the law. This is how determined I am. And as far as I'm concerned, I don't see people from political spectacles. I see people for God's creation, how they were created. And they have a right to choose how they want to behave, how they want to support, who they want to support. That's their business.
Now, the cry from some of your youth or members, the young people in your party, has been that they also want to benefit, they also want to enjoy.
They will not have it in that same way. They will benefit, but in a much more organized and legal way. Look, the president has been on record as having said he didn't understand why the low-hanging fruits of the local endowment that God gave us, forestry, timber business, mukula, why it should be to the exclusive ownership of people from away from this country. Why should a youth in a place that is got wood not be part and parcel of the enjoyment of that natural resource? So part of what we're trying to do is to make sure that there's more inclusion, especially on citizens, in economic affairs than it was before. So the youth can go, and we are going to do our best, to tell you the truth, that there must be an investment policy that should come sooner rather than later to make sure that foreign investors who bring an investment here must be encouraged to partner with locals.
All right, now,
because the locals have got this natural endowment, which God gave us, mukula, copper, name it, whatever. The foreigner will come with the cash for investment. So we must put an equity there, which is the ownership.
I like that you're speaking about legalities. The people that, vandalized and really ill-treated these marketeers in these bus stations are well-known individuals. Of course, this is theft, if you put it in very simple terms. Any plans of these people being identified, because they are well-known individuals and their names are out there, and being apprehended?
Most of them ran away. Can I tell you what happened, Gloria? The moment we were pronounced as winners, the first people who ran away were the market masters. Why would the market master just take to their heels? Why would they run? Why would they be apprehensive? Why would they be paranoid? To just vanish. Everybody just left and they left. You know why? Because they were running a 2 accounting book parallel system where there was a little money for the council and a bulk of the money for themselves, taking somewhere where I cannot mention because I have no proof, but I believe to their political parties. The moment that Mr. Hichilema was pronounced winner, they vanished. They left their employment. Up to today, we can't see them. That should go to show you that that paranoia, the fear of the unknown, was a reflection of the atrocities that they did, where even trading places, if you are not a praise singer of PF, they would come and wantonly take you out of your market store and put another person. They would do that. And yet they were governors. There were people who were governing, superintending over affairs. They could never lift. There's no one in PF who could sit on a program that I'm seated here and condemn any ill activities that is believed to be perpetrated by people from his own political party. It never happened. Because there was disorder. Do you remember that PF is a party that began traversing the city of Lusaka with coffins? They started with my brother Winter Kabimba. While he was alive, they were parading coffins in Lusaka city. We buried him. They had coffins for many people. And the police were weaker than the cadres. You know what we're trying to do right now? Is to give the police back their constitutional power. Before, Gloria, you may know, you may not, I was a victim of a policeman's abuse, where he meets me at the filling station trying to get some fuel with my wife, and he comes with a firearm, he's drunk, inebriated.
Remember that very well.
Yes. And then, the very next day, Miss Mata Katongo, Esther Mata Katongo, sorry to mention her name here, but it's a fact of life. She goes on public TV and said, we are looking for an MP who assaulted a policeman. He's on the run. It reminds me of Joseph Goebbels. If you remember Joseph Goebbels, in the time of Adolf Hitler, he was the master of the propaganda. So PF had a very strong wing of propaganda that made us look just bad people. I was in jail, Gloria, for having killed somebody who I never even met in my whole life, under PF. And I sat in Livingston Penitentiary, the prison, for nearly a month. And they just threw me in the gallows and just said, this one killed someone. When in fact not. Okay?
All right.
So we are dealing with real change, and I'm sure that it is only fair to ask the Zambians to be a little bit patient with us. 100 days is too little for anyone.
Pest has been one of the major complaints, and now that you're speaking about it, the pace at which the New Dawn is operating. I know that, well, if you look at it critically, there's the issue of transitioning and also settling and
thinking. And also application of the mind is called thinking. Gloria, if we took a posture the way PF did, we would injure people, some of whom were even innocent. It should never be, governance of a country should never be like a broad spectrum clearance of a disease, like antibiotics, where you say whatever is wrong in the body must go. No, you target. Right. Where's the problem? You identify the problem, you fix it, you isolate the problem, you carry on. If anybody, because don't forget, there were two categories of people under PF. And that's why every time even my vice president speaks, she says, don't rush us. Two categories. There were those pushers of the agenda of excluding people, beating up people, and there were those who were cowed down. You could never, at one point, you could never see the difference because everyone started behaving the same. If you are not scared, you have to pretend to be PF. Do you know that we were now being treated like lepers? That even relatives would never come to my house because they had a job in government. Sisters were being thrown out of employment. My own sister was kicked out of ZRA because she bore a name, a toxic name called Nkombo. One day she just woke up and she was given a letter out. We couldn't go on like that. Today there's simply no way I can be looking for a Kampiongo or Chitotela to victimize. I couldn't do that. And I'm sorry I'm using those two names because they're my friends. I'm just using them as an example. There's simply no way I'm going to make it my business to look for a Munduwile, a Nakachinda, to say these children must be out of employment as long as they are employed by government. I want you to know, Gloria, it used to happen in PF, in cabinet meetings, where they would say, Wala Chimona, we should never employ their children. It was happening.
Very interesting. All right, on that particular note, let's take a short break. You're watching Crossfire. We're sitting down with the Honorable Minister of Local Government and Rural Development. A number of issues have been discussed. Of course, the conversation continues on the other side. And of course, if you're very lucky, you get to call us in and ask at least 1 or 2 questions to the Minister himself shortly after this break. Keep watching.
Let's talk money.
Monetary, there are monetary things that you can do, instruments that you can do. You can think around.
Its function is to boost and bring visibility to the work
Real
that
estate
we do all the
investments.
time.
Is something like wooden shopping mall, which is a small
Business policies.
We're coming up with policies
Right.
that will make
It's a long period of time to fully address a credibility deficit that has been eroded over a period of time. It doesn't
was
come.
able to raise about just shy of 1.5
Macro
lakhs.
economics.
Almost just there, meniscus. The rest,
So you find that
Financial
you can come up with an idea, but don't think that people are sitting and just looking at you.
Percent of the jobs in this country, in fact 67% of the jobs in this country are supposed to go to the private sector. You do not have a proper country where your highest paid people...
Every Tuesday at 8 p.m.
Host Joella Chomba. Now, some of the most recent
Catch Money Watch Weekly with Yoella Chomba.
have been the appreciation of the kwacha that was caused by central bank intervention, and also
Money Watch Weekly, only on Spring TV.
Spring TV.
Welcome back, and of course you're still watching Crossfire right here on Spring Television. Remember that we are sitting down with the Minister of Local Government and Rural Development, Honorable Garry Nkombo, and of course if you're fast on your fingers, the numbers you're dialing are actually on your screen right now as we speak. Get to call us in, and of course if you have any questions, contributions or comments, feel free to actually make them known right now on the program. Honorable, welcome back. A number of things have been discussed, and largely to do with how you are managing your ministry so far. What's the update on Forest 27?
Okay, I'm always confronted with this question because I am the one who issued the warning, if you
You
like.
excited us all.
Yeah. You know, back in the year, when we were fighting for the right thing to be done, those who were governing decided that they were going to degazette a forest which was responsible for the recharge system of the Chalimbana and the Chongwe River. People must understand that this is not a joke, all right? It has never been a joke. It isn't a joke. I was serious. I'm still serious. That whoever decided to degazette that aquifer, it's called a water aquifer, to build houses, to put sewer systems in a water recharge area, a protected, gazetted forest, has committed crime against humanity. That's, for me, my position today. All right, now we seem to be torn apart because that forest, whereas I was debating at the time as a backbencher in the opposition, I knew exactly what I was talking about. And my feelings about that forest has not changed even one bit. My colleague, Honorable Muchima, and myself, in the first week of being appointed, we went to the Forest 27 to go and see with our own eyes the devastation, what has happened. Today, as I'm talking to you, Gloria, the people in Chongwe are dried up. They cannot have water because of that decision that people made. What makes it worse, that puts salt to injury, is really that in the fact that the people who broke that piece of land and apportioned it to themselves were the governors of the, if you go there, that's a PF compound. What kind of leaders are these? That's what I said to the speaker when I said, what kind of people are we dealing with? At the time when we're debating that Forest 27. The Zambia Environmental Management Agency, which is the organization by the law, the constitution, charged with the responsibility of approving developments that may damage or destroy the ecosystem, said a categoric no to building houses there. Zema said, don't do it. But they went and they decided, well, they'll use the provision of the law that says a minister can overturn Zema's decision. Now, let me tell you this. That minister, whoever it was, is going to be judged very harshly by the posterity when that time comes. Talk about demolition. We want government. If it was within my power, my singular power, bulldozers would have gone there to drop them. That's what Uhuru Kenyatta did. And sometimes you do the unfavorable things in public eye, but sometimes they're for public good, because it's the country that should come first, rather than individual, self-aggrandizement. It's called. I'll give you another small example. That aquifer, the water recharge system, is damaged by PF. If you go on the other side, you go on Kasangula Road, you see that PF boys and girls are busy erecting houses where there should be no houses. And I want to use this platform to say, I, as Minister of Local Government, have instructed the Lusaka City Council that whether this house is complete or not, raise it down. Don't raise it down at 5 or 3 or 2 a.m. Raise it down at 8 o'clock. And we see who is going to make noise. It is at that point, Gloria, when you're trying to defend the law, that whoever wants to be in confrontation with the law by behaving in a hoodlum manner, by behaving in roguish behavior, by wanting to challenge the law, that you can apply even that tear gas, and not political enemies, as the case was before. When you want to bring sanity and people want to continue with, uncivility, that is at the point where you can now say, okay, we're going to see who is who in this zoo. And my president not long ago said, okay, it looks like these guys are pushing their luck. We're going to see who's governing. And government means running a legal system, okay, and not jungle law. A legal system where the do's and the don'ts are clearly defined. You follow what I mean? You cannot defend a thief. Someone comes to pick your pocket, and when you catch them, the people riot and say, no, the thief, like the way the case was in the time of Jesus Christ and Barabbas, where the people said, we want this one and not this one. Okay? We have to make sure that law and order comes back to this country. You cannot be like Haiti was, where, people just did things any which way they wanted. Order must be restored.
So as we stand now, what's next? What are you doing?
The Minister of Lands is going to soon, without saying this for himself, but for him, but we're in one cabinet, soon is receiving a report from WWF. That's what at least I know. WWF are going to give an assessment report of exactly how much damage has been done to the water recharge system. At that point, a decision will be made. But I want you to know that because of impunity on the behalf of people in PF, even when the minister put a stop order, because he did that, it's on record, he put a stop order to say no more construction until we get to the bottom of this. They're constructing at night. They're building fast with stolen money. How can you be building at night? Okay? So it is a matter that posterity will have to come into play. It will judge those people very harshly.
All right, very interesting there. Quickly, as we come to the dying minutes of the program, during your tours, one issue I've seen that you have been, we know rather as S24 that you have been in a number of parts across the country. That is one of the issues you've been touching on are federal roads and how these contractors that were contracted have hardly finished their jobs. Really, what is the way forward with that?
Again, without preempting the report that's coming, I want you to know that we engaged professional people, because I'm not a professional. I was leading a team as a figurehead. I heard people saying, no, how can the minister go himself to look at roads? What does he know about construction? I want you to know that we assembled a team of experts from Zulu Barrow Engineering Consultants, a patriotic Zambian, who, when we approached him, said he was going to do this assignment free of any charge, as long as we carry him along and give an objective report that is void of any seeming, what one would call targeting of people. But Gloria, as we come to the dying minutes of this, I'm a very sad person. I'm a very sad individual. Because as the case was in Forest 27, I want you to know, and to know from this moment on, that those road contractors, nearly 90%, were all PF cadres, with not what it takes to do anything. And only a handful, out of maybe close to 150 or so contractors, Madam Kalambo, only a handful, less than 10, have come to the office with a straight face to say, I am the contractor and have come to talk to you. They are sending people, go and talk to the minister. I'm not the paymaster. The pay is done at NRFA. But this hand is going to take part in approving who is paid and who is not, who has to pay back the government, who took free money. That must be very clear in everyone's mind. And at this point, I don't even care what anyone thinks.
Was going to be my
Those
next
who
question,
took money and they have not done their work, they'll go to jail. Make no two ways about it. They took public money and have not moved on site. They must come and answer. This must be a way of accounting for things. I want you to know, maybe as we finish, my strong suspicion. Haven't you ever asked yourself a question? How come there are no more boys and girls who are flashing money on the phone, showing off about having bricks and bricks of money? Where do you think that money was coming from? Gloria, I'm sure you know my guess is as good as what yours would be. There was a leakage somewhere, and the Ministry of Local Government was one of the leaking points. People have said, no, Mr. Hichilema's cabinet, that Nakachinda, you know, there's something wrong with that boy. He kept mentioning the Minister of Local Government, this. I want you to know that in these 100 days of UPND, in the Ministry of Local Government, we have not made a single payment, not even of one ngwe, to anyone. So how can anyone come and start saying, no, there's corruption? There's no corruption, because we have not, at least I can speak for myself. In my ministry, madam, we have not released one ngwe, 1 cent, to any contractor on the feeder roads, on the township roads, and on infrastructure. There are people, and mark my word again, and the country will know very soon. Some of them, in fact, most of them, politically exposed people, giving themselves contracts. How can you be a manager here at Spring TV and you are the provider of goods and services? Something's wrong. We have a situation where they were like giving Dracula to be the head of the blood bank. That's what was going on in there. And they will be exposed very soon. And, you know, they must not even think twice that, you know, these people are scared. No, nobody's scared. Those will be in their right places very soon.
So the assurance is that this money will be brought back if these people do not finish their jobs.
There are 2 options only, my lady. Money back in the asset recovery program or jail.
Very interesting. I know, Honorable, we really don't have time. And of course, I know that our phone lines are buzzing and would have loved to pick up some calls, but we are running out of time. So quickly, just your final remarks. And we've spoken about a number of things going on.
Well, as usual, I would like to thank you most sincerely for giving me this opportunity to come and give the UPND perspective on my ministry. And we are always on hand to talk to people. I wish it would have been an interactive session where people call in and answer. Including those who may even bring out ridiculous questions. We would like to accommodate them. But just assure me that next time I come, it's going to be an interactive
Definitely.
session.
We're going to have more time next time you do come through. So thank you so much once again for coming through. And of course, on that particular note, we come to the end of this week's edition of Crossfire. In case you're just watching or you just joined the conversation, feel free to actually go back or get to our Facebook page. That's Spring 24 TV, and you find the conversation going on right from the beginning down to the end, right there on the page in itself. Thank you so much for watching. Have a lovely evening.